Hello and welcome to today's daily news analysis. So today is 9th of Feb. We are covering the Hindu newspapers Delhi edition. And I make it a point to share questions for mains answer writing practice. And in fact, I have two questions today. And framing these two questions really took me a lot of time, and this is one reason that today's DNA is a bit late. So we have a question on the anti-conversion bill, and the other one is with the hijab law. And you can get these questions evaluated from me in addition to this quota of 2 answers per week, which I do it for free, right? So these are additional questions, and time to time I'll be sharing some questions that I feel are more important, more priority, so that I'll do that as extra. Okay, now why I'm doing this and why did I say that it took extra time? Basic reason is that, see, these topics are politically loaded. So they are very politically loaded. Lot of views are expressed, very critical views on both sides. So when you are actually writing the examination, we don't expect, but when you are actually writing the examination, it is quite possible that under the pressure situation, under the time constraints, right, you have a lot of pressure, you may write things that you shouldn't write. And therefore, we have to practice such questions beforehand. That is the issue. Otherwise, I could have shared question on, let's say, how to boost farm income or India-Sri Lanka relationship, but I'll keep getting these opportunities. So today I have basically these two issues, and you can get these evaluated, no issues. And all you have to do is write it in the handwritten format and post it on my WhatsApp or Telegram channel, and the link is in the description box below. Right. Now coming to this issue, and the issue comes from the Haryana cabinet, which has given approval for the anti-conversion bill. And this anti-conversion bill, this is not specifically with reference to Haryana, but then we have various other states like Arunachal Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, who have introduced or who are considering to bring a law which is very similar to this. So here arises this question, right? Why are we having such a law? First thing, what is the rationale behind it? Then the other issue is, does it amount to the violation of Article 25 of the Constitution? Article 25 is, and 228 actually, but 25 is the individual right of an individual for free practice of religion, right? So it is with reference to that. So it affects a person's right to convert. If a person wants to convert to a different faith, it affects. Then it says, with reference to anti-conversion bill, we have one more issue, that if a person wants to convert, or a person has been converted because of a marriage, right? When marriage takes place, normally couples live together and there is a conversion that takes place, specifically with the interfaith marriage. Then they have to seek an approval. And if it is seen that some sort of malpractice has taken place, then in that case, it can be declared null and void. Now, what if we can say that the state believes that even though they were couples who have voluntarily come together, but the problem is with the state, they don't approve of this, then what happens? Will their marriage will be declared null and void? Now, this is again a very important question. So here is the question that I have. Recently, several states have enacted or are in the process of enacting anti-conversion law or bill, whatever. Discuss the rationale behind it and concerns associated with it. Right? A bill is being introduced in different states. Naturally, there is a reason for it. So why? What are the concerns associated with it? And what needs to be done? Now, when you're writing such an answer, right, I'll discuss all these points. Now, when you're writing such an answer, you have to list down that various states are part of it. Then you bring about a reason as to why it is being done. Now, I am not in favor, when I read the answers, I find the introduction, pros, cons, and a conclusion. But this is a different approach that I want to share today, that you can start your answer by stating that, see, different states have introduced, and the rationale behind is there is a concern of illegitimate religious conversions taking place. You can bring about a fact, you can bring about but very briefly you have to state this, right? You can mention the issue of conversions taking place by means of force, misrepresentation, undue influence, or even marriages. So some issues have come to light, and to check this, the anti-conversion bill has been introduced. So very briefly you introduce. Then come to the key provisions. So I'm basically referring to the same provisions, and it is more or less same no matter which state it is being. And again, one more thing, it is not specifically to the BJP ruled states, right? We have Arunachal, we have this Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, these are all BJP. But we also have Odisha, we also have Chhattisgarh, right? So non-BJP states are also there. In fact, recently we have this Aam Aadmi Party's chief, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, he also was in favor of anti-conversion law. So definitely there is a rationale, and it is not specific to a particular political party. Now coming to the key provisions. So basic idea is that it prohibits religious conversions through concealment, fraud, marriage, etc. Right? Same points you can write down. Then certain other issues. What if we find a malpractice taking place or somebody has accused a person? Then in that case, the burden of proof or the responsibility of proving that a person is not guilty is that with the accused. Right? There is a victim, there is an accused. So somebody has filed a case. So it is the responsibility of the accused to prove that the person is innocent. Normally it is the opposite of this. Then the penal provisions or the punishment for this act. This is a cognizable offence, and it is a non-bailable. That is, if a person has been arrested or charged with this offence, the person will go to the jail, and one cannot seek bail on this. And when we say cognizable, sometimes you must have seen non-cognizable offence. So cognizable means offence that is very serious in nature. So it is in the class of offences like murder, kidnapping, rape, etc. Now, let's say a conversion takes place, then in that case, one has to inform the authority, right? So within 30 days, one has to inform. And with reference to the marriage also, marriage may be declared null and void even when not informed to the DM. So this is a concern, right? So basically, these are the initial measures, and these are more or less common to different states. So we generalize these statements and write it. And it is basically these points only that are there. Now, the rationale, again we come to this, that this will provide one's right to free practice of religion, and we have the right to free practice of religion, but at the same time it cannot be enforced, it cannot be forced upon other people. Or Article 25 also provides for propagation of religion, but it cannot be forced. There are reasonable restrictions to it. There are issues of cases of fraud, inducement, violation of rights, so that can be mentioned. Right, it's up to you how you balance these two over here. So basically you can refer to these provisions and make a positive case about it. But in brief, because already you have introduced this aspect. Then coming to the concerns. So first of all, we find that it is uncertain and vague. The wording of these laws or these bills are uncertain and vague. For example, there is a reference that it prohibits religious conversion effected through misrepresentation, force, undue influence, coercion, allurement, or by marriage. Now, what does it mean by marriage? Right? So, by marriage, there is a possibility in interfaith marriage that conversion will take place. But by marriage is not clear enough. And what accounts to misrepresentation or allurement? How does one define it? So, this is a problem. So, there is a lot of ambiguity. Then, what about legitimate interfaith marriage? And here again, one needs to seek approval of the authority. One has to claim that, otherwise if the authority does not sanction it, then it will be violative. So this goes against the principles of secularism. It goes against the principle of one choosing one's own life partner. So we will refer to the judgments to substantiate our points. And naturally, it is antithetical to the principle of secularism. And it is the state which is saying that, you are right, your conversion is right, this is wrong. So again, this is antithetical. So we have the Hadia judgment. Hadia judgment was a case where a woman had married a person, and Hindu woman had married a Muslim person. So in that case, the family of that person the family of the girl had went to the court, and in that the Supreme Court had said, so this is known as the Hadia judgment, that right to marry, it is the individual's choice as to whom it wants to marry. So this is coming under the Article 21 of the Constitution. Then Puttaswamy judgment also said that it is a matter of privacy and personal autonomy and it should not be disturbed by the state. Then it will have such restrictions, such provisions of the law may have a chilling effect on the freedom of one's religion or one's life decision to choose one's life partner. So with reference to Supreme Court. And with reference to, again, Supreme Court had said that it is the absolute right of an individual to choose a life partner and is not in the least affected by matters of faith. So it should not be with reference to this. Right, so these are the views over here. Now one last part is the conclusion. How do you conclude this? For me, if I am concluding this, for me, I feel now when I am giving the representations, I have made a case that there is a legitimate reason for bringing this. At the same time, I have expressed certain concerns. So you can bring about a conclusion by claiming that we need to have a balanced view, a balanced approach where we address the concerns associated with undue practices for conversions, but at the same time it should be in accordance with the key principles of secularism, key values that are mentioned in the preamble and the constitution. Something to that effect can be done. Okay, now short ones. So for one is this controversy that has taken place. So there was this in Pakistan, so there was this Kashmir day over there, right? So Hyundai had posted something about Kashmiri and the Kashmiri rights. Kashmir belongs to Kashmir, likewise Pizza Hut and many other companies. So they had written. And naturally this goes against India, right? So the government is taking a strong stance on it. There is a social media outrage also on this. So this is there. Okay. Next comes, Congress is in the grip of urban Naxals, says Prime Minister Modi. I'm not going into this actually, but yes, what is this urban Naxals? And urban Naxals is something that I believe is important from GS3. GS3 covers internal security. People, students make a mistake with GS2 is IR and GS3 is internal security. Okay, now we find questions on Naxalism being asked repeatedly. Naxalism, left-wing extremism, every 2 years there is a question. But urban Naxals has not been asked as yet. And with this government particularly, urban Naxals political statements, urban Naxal is a phrase that is repeatedly used. So let me explain this urban Naxals. We'll discuss a question later and we'll keep having this thing time and again. But Prime Minister Modi is saying so, his party, more people will also say subsequently. Okay, now urban Naxals. So we know what is left-wing extremism, Naxalbari movement. So Naxalbari are basically people who are left-wing extremists who are using the issue of Jal, jungle, Zameen. So they say they are fighting for the cause of the tribal population, people who are affected by the state, whose properties have been taken away by the corporates. So that is what they say they are fighting for. But we all know there are a lot of human rights violations, there is a lot of menace that takes place because of this. So this is the agenda or this is the propaganda that the left-wing extremists have. And these are basically in those pockets where there is lack of development. Right, for this, again, to address this, we have an aspirational district scheme. Okay, so this is the thing. Now Naxalism has emerged, and what they are doing is they are seeking support from the urban intellectual class. That is the idea. What sort of support? Support in terms of creating an agenda, creating a public opinion that is in favor of the people who are fighting over here, maybe on grounds of human rights, on the tribal issue. So creating some sort of an propaganda that government is against the people. Creating a base for recruitment of troops, recruitment of people, for financing. So they provide some sort of an outside support. right? So this is basically urban naxalism. So this is a two-pronged strategy. So one is with the fight and other is on the intellectual front, right? So they provide some sort of a moral support, some sort of an support with reference to finances, etc. So that is urban naxalism. But unfortunately what we see is that this is there, but we also see that the establishment uses this expression of urban naxals to curb the issues of take actions against human rights activists, because human rights activists is naturally speaking against the government, right? So this is the problem, that it is used to curb dissent. Okay, PM's words on Telengana, Maharashtra triggered fury, right? So this is there. Basically, Prime Minister Modi in the parliament had referred to the state of Maharashtra for mismanagement with reference to COVID. So therefore, there is a revert. And with reference to Telengana, it is about the bifurcation of the state of Andhra Pradesh, right? So there is Andhra, and within that Andhra, Telengana was constituted. So it says the Telengana Rashtra Samiti, the main party over there, they say that it's because of the BJP, the delay took place, a lot of people have died, all those things. Okay, so this is it. Now coming to the next question, and again politically loaded. So this is with reference to the recent event of Hijab saffron row, right? So Karnataka, there is a lot of tension because of this. So now I have a question to you, before you, and we'll keep this a bit neutral. So what do you understand by the concept of freedom of practice, profession and propagation of religion? Does it cover the right to wear, right? So right to wear, especially with reference to one's customary dress. Discuss in light of recent events. Now this is a question that is very similar to a question that was asked with reference to freedom of speech and expression. So the question was titled as, what do you understand by the concept of freedom of speech and expression? Does it cover the hate speech? And then there was some reference of media, right? So these are not made up questions. These are strictly from the past years. Okay. So we have this issue. We have the issue with reference to this protest that is taking place between saffron hijab, right? So hijab is a dress. You can see this is basically a woman wearing a hijab, right? Now this is not restricted to hijab. It could be with reference to Sikhs wearing turban or any particular religion. It could be there that they have a particular code, customary dress code, or a customary dress that they wear, right? Now this question has to be addressed in light of one's right to free practice of religion, right? So in that light it has to be written, and within this one can say that one is practicing one's religion. Maybe one's wearing a hijab, so one is, for that person it is an essential practice of for a particular, let's say for a Muslim person, because I'm giving this reference because to keep a beard is an essential practice, for me wearing a turban is an essential practice, right? So does this include that the free practice of religion include the right to wear something, especially if it is a customary dress? So discuss in light of recent events, and this we have to be very careful. Okay, let's start with the question approach. So first of all, we can start by stating the concept of freedom of practice, a profession and propagation of religion. So this is something you can write in your own words, right? So you can explain this, that one has the freedom to practice one's religion, right? So it's basically the security or a guarantee that the state provides to one's citizens. And in our country, we have Article 25. Even the freedom to religion is actually 25, 26, 27, 28. But when we refer to the freedom of religion, at 25, we are specifically talking about the right of an individual to practice one's own religion. 26 is with reference to the institution. Yeah. So this is provided for in our constitution. It is guaranteed as a fundamental right. So once you define this, then you give a reference of Article 25. You can give a reference to the values mentioned in the preamble, that secularism is being mentioned. And even the Supreme Court had said that it is a basic structure of the constitution in the S.R. Bommai case. Right, political questions, we have to refer to the judgments. It provides more legitimacy to our answers. And this is a question to do with the constitution. Okay, so we do this. Now, comes the issue of one's right to wear, right? So one's right to wear over here. So one has the right to wear. Does it include the part of one's practice of religion? That is the main question over here. Is it part of one's practice of religion? Is it essential to the practice of that religion? So this is a question that this is a statement that you have to elaborate upon. So one is this. Is it an essential practice to that religion? Then the second thing is, what when there is an issue of a dress code? For example, in schools there are uniform. And what if if they say that, see, you cannot, everybody has to be dressed alike in a similar manner? And what if a person wears hijab, right? I'll give you one example of France. So France, again, the hijab issue had taken place. So with reference to France, again, with Sikh people, they have the patka, they have to wear, they have to have the hair. Now in France, they say that no symbol of religion should be reflected. That is a problem. So they said that you cannot wear the turban, you cannot wear the patka, those things. So dress code with reference to there is something that institution has been provided when there is a conflict between the institution and the person. So I have an example with reference to a Muslim airman. So according to the Air Force rules, one is not supposed to keep a beard, right? So he was keeping a beard and therefore he was released. He went to the court, Supreme Court favored and gave a judgment in favor of the Air Force. Right, so this is one example. Okay, so this is there. So you can talk about these two issues over here. And what about in this case we have an issue where other people are protesting against. Now when we look at the other person, we are looking at other person saying that you do not wear this, you do that. It is an individual's concern, right? Other people cannot say, especially when they are not affected by this. Other people can say, the state can say when it is a subject to public order, morality or health. These are not conditions that are affecting. So we have non-affected people who are protesting. So this is again a point that you can mention. Okay. No reference of all this, right? No political, very neutral we have to be. Now coming back, we can refer to this aspect over here. Now we can refer to some Supreme Court judgments. So we refer to the right to wear, why is it important, and some conflicting situations. And now we can refer to some Supreme Court judgments in this reference. So when we look at the issue of right to wear, right, the Supreme Court in that referent aspect, we can refer to the issue concept of essential practices test. So Supreme Court in the Shirur Math case, it had termed that religion will cover all rituals and practices integral to a religion. And in the Anand Murgi case, so there is a sect, right? So with that sect also, the right to perform Tandav dance in public streets. So it said that it does not constitute the essential religious practice. People had a problem with this. They said that it is affecting the public morality or public order. So this is not an essential practice to your religion, so you need not do it. Likewise with triple talaq. So essential practices test is here. Now is it right to wear something essential to a particular religion? So on that grounds they look into this issue. Now here we have two conflicting views. So one with reference to the Muslim airman I gave you. Then recently this 2015, this AIPMT, this free medical entrance test was to take place in Kerala. So they prescribed a dress code. Now in this, hijab wasn't referred. So, the security guard, the people at the entrance, they started having a problem. So when one went to the court. So in this reference, the Kerala High Court said that CBSE has to make certain changes, right? And CBSE said that we didn't consider this, it was not our objective. Okay, in the Fatima Tasneem case versus the state of Kerala, this was a case again with reference to the school uniform prescribed by a school vis-a-vis a person wanting to wear the hijab. So here it said that but this was a single bench, this is a bigger bench. So here it said that the school or the institution's right will prevail. If you don't want to go, don't go to that school. Simple. Okay, so this is what they had said over here. Now you refer to the judgments. Now come to the conclusion part. You can refer to this. Now in our country, we have the principle of Sarvadharm Sambhav, that is coexistence of all religion. We are very different from the French model of secularism, and if you do this is French model of secularism. So in that, no symbol of religion should be there. The state cannot interfere into the matters of religion, everything. So it's kind of a negative way of secularism. Ours is positive secularism, where everybody can profess one's own religion as long as it doesn't affect public order, morality and health. State can also intervene, right? So this is there. So it's a lot more liberal in that reference. And furthermore, Vasudev Kutumbakam. That is, the world is one village, and again world is one family, and everybody has to coexist. And when we have to do this, we have to appreciate the diversity that is there within our own country, right? Rights of the people. So that aspect has to be there, right? So in that way, you can refer and conclude to your answer. And should it be there, should not, what restriction should be there, you can refer to the conclusion. My basic point of sharing this is actually that these things should be there in your answer. I don't want to share the format of your answer, just that these points have to be there. Now coming to Tamil Nadu Assembly readopts NEET bill. 4th of Feb I had discussed this, so let me just briefly tell you. So what happened was that Supreme Court, let me say I have a blank slide. So there was this, today we have this news, we have the editorial, and then we have the opinion, and plus I have the veto provisions also for our reference. So we'll do that. Okay, I wanted some blank space, right? So Supreme Court had told to the center that, see, the entrance exam that takes place for undergraduate as well as the postgraduate, so this is very problematic because there are different universities. The student has to find different application forms, and application forms cost a lot of money. Then writing in test one place, then other place, this is again problematic. It involves the cost also, moving from one place to another. So why don't you have a single entrance test? And that is how NEET came into existence. So center as a result passed a law for a common entrance test, which were for medical. So this is NEET. Now when there is going to be a single entrance test, right, single entrance test, then it intrudes into the domain of the state. It is a state subject. The state will decide as to how the university functions, what rules are there for the university, how do they get admissions. It is the state's domain. So it is encroaching into the domain of the state. So cooperative federalism. One thing I liked about the people, the leaders from the south, is they do refer to these principles quite often, which is good actually. We don't find this in the Delhi edition. Okay, so state's domain is being encroached upon. So the state of Tamil Nadu has a problem with this. It says that, see, first of all, this is our domain, you are intruding into this. Then having a common entrance test, you are just measuring one's abilities, analytical abilities, this ability, but ability to crack one test, that's simple as that. This test is not inclusive. This test is in English language, English or Hindi. Now permission is there to write this in different languages, but the questions are still in English and Hindi. So this provides a disadvantage to the people, especially Tamil based students, right? They are talking about Tamil Nadu. So they have a problem with that. It is not inclusive. It is favoring the people who can afford coaching, who can go beyond the school and prepare dedicatedly for that exam. Many of the people who have cleared the NEET exam are people who could afford a drop. And I say afford because it costs money to take drop, not pursue something, right? So for poor people, it becomes more difficult to bear the cost of hostel, etc., etc. So this is a problem. So it is not inclusive. It favors of urban background, and it is for the people who are affluent. So rural people, poorer people from socio-economically backward, they are at a disadvantage. And when we have this, we are going to find a decline in the enrollment of the rural population. So this is a concern. we want, and actually if we want a more inclusive healthcare, we need more people from the rural India entering, studying, and then serving the rural population. That is what we really want. So this is not happening. Right, so they have a problem. In fact, there is a system that based on the 12th marks, they can get admission. They feel that is more inclusive as a system. Okay, so they have a problem with this. Right, so the problems I have mentioned. Now, the state legislature, this is the state legislature. So they went to the governor. All the parties, opposition parties, everybody, they passed the law. Right, they passed the bill. Actually, I will not say law. Bill becomes a law when the governor signs it. So they have passed a bill that the NEET should be exempted. The state of Tamil Nadu should be exempted from the condition of NEET. So they passed a law and they went to obviously the bill will go to the governor. Governor said that he used his power of veto. He said that I'm not comfortable. This is not in line with the Supreme Court judgment. You are going against the central law. So he said, you please reconsider this. And NEET is for socio-economically backward people. So on that ground, he said, now this is not something that is listed as a criteria under the constitution. Anyways, so he used the veto power. He sent back the bill. So one is withholding the assent, that I will not sign it. Other thing is, when you send the bill back, then the legislature have to pass it again and it goes to the governor. Now the governor is bound. According to Article 200 of the Constitution, the governor is bound to give his assent. Right? So this is known as suspensive veto. Now, the governor would be sending this bill to the president. The governor will be sending the bill to the president, and now it is up to the president. Now this editorial basically is again talking about the same aspect, that this was the issue. Why didn't the governor actually send this bill back to the legislature in the first place? It could have given it to the president directly. So the ball is now in the president's court. Right, so this is there. Then it is talking about the role of the governor, and there is a reference of the Sarkaria Commission on Center-State Relations. Then here we have the issue of that the state has with reference to the NEET examination. Now one more thing over here. As the main deliverers of public health is the state. The state cannot be denied a say in who joins medical courses and in government colleges. Right, so this should be the domain of the state. This is Article 200 of the Constitution, which talks about the veto power. I have highlighted the key provisions. You can just take a screenshot. Okay. Now the government, basically this is a case that the government should spend more. It should have allotted more budgetary allocation for making agriculture sustainable, for sustainable development of higher agri growth. Now let me just give you a brief background. I have a question also, but I'm not really going very deep into this today. Okay, so basic idea over here is this, that our GDP has been growing at 7%, 10%, maybe recently 6% also. So our GDP is growing at a fast pace, but when we look at the agriculture sector, right, agriculture sector is around 2%. At best, it will go to 5%. But when it goes to 5%, our normal GDP is around 10%. So our agri GDP is very, very behind. It should be much more than this. And over the years, why is the agri GDP so low? That is the problem. These are things that I basically want to tinker with your mind, right? So that's why I'm telling you all this. So this, you have to know why, what is the problem with the agriculture sector, what is the rural distress. Then comes the issue as to what can be done, why, then comes the issue of how does it affect the population, how does it affect the people. So rural population is around 34 is urban, so 66% of the population is rural, and 55% of our workforce is in agriculture, And if the agri GDP does not grow, right, we are not having inclusive growth. So this is a problem. This also means we are having more and more population in poverty. More people, so land is coming under agriculture is also coming down. So this is a problematic scenario, and therefore something needs to be done. Now the issue arises, what can be done? And with reference to this, I have the question, elaborate on the policy taken by the government of India to meet the challenges of the farm sector. General, I just mentioned this. Okay, now this author over here, she's saying that she's critical of the budget actually. She says that the agriculture sector, the allocation that is there has marginally increased, but by 4.4%, but the inflation is at a much higher rate. So let's say this is at 4.4, for convenience I'll say 4%, allocation increase is there, but the inflation is at 6%. That means in real terms, it is getting minus 2%, right? The things are getting more expensive and you're giving less money. So actual allocation is less. So this is it. Then there is a concept known as Agriculture Orientation Index, AOI. Now this is something that can be asked in the prelims. So AOI. So it is an index that is being developed with reference to the Sustainable Development Goals. Now SDG, if you can remember, that will be very nice. So SDG provides the goal for the different world countries, for the globe as such. But the countries have to independently make policies for fulfillment of the goals. So certain targets have been given. So targets between the time period of 2015 to 2030. Before this, we had Millennium Development Goals. So that was till 2015, now SDG, right? And this is associated with the UN. So we have Goal 2, which provides for zero hunger of the 2030 agenda of SDG in 2015. So this is there, and this is Agriculture Orientation Index. And what does this cover? It is basically covering the government spending towards agriculture sector and the sector's contribution towards GDP, right? So this is basically the government budgetary allocation with reference to agri GDP. That is all. Okay, so AOI, it is with reference to SDG. It is associated with the UN. Now here we have, it says that, see, we are doing much worse as compared to other countries, right? Particularly even the sub-Saharan countries and backward countries also, our allocations are weak. Middle income countries, lower middle income countries also, they are allocating more money. So we lag behind this. Now here we have, what measures are the government taking with reference to agriculture? So we have a lot of references of schemes. So one is, we have market intervention and price support scheme, something like MSP, right? So price support, the government is providing an assurance that, see, we will ensure that the farmer gets a particular price. An assurance is there that even if there is mass production and there is too much of supply, the price will not be coming down. So a guarantee is being provided. So there is a market intervention scheme and price support scheme. This is there. And again, market intervention scheme is also that the government ensures that inflation doesn't rise, specifically with the vegetables. So, this tomato, onion, potato, the price keeps going up. So the government tries to keep that price low for providing relief to the consumer. But at the same time, it tries to secure the price that the farmer receives. Then we have the scheme. This is important. All of these are important recent schemes. Pradhan Mantri Asha. So this is Pradhan Mantri Annadata. Annadata means a farmer. Sanrakshan Abhiyan. So Annadata is the person who is providing grains. So that is the farmer. So his income, has to be protected. For this, allocation was made, but that has come down. So that is a basic complaint. But yes, what is this? This is basically, again, with reference to price support to the farmers. And with reference to this, we have the MSP policy. There is the state of Madhya Pradesh who came up with the scheme known as Bhavantar Bhugtan Yojana, Mukhyamantri Bhavantar Bhugtan Yojana. That is, the farmer can sell this is basically price deficiency, forgetting the exact name, deficiency in price. So let's say farmer can sell to the market, and let's say the MSP provides 4 rupees per kilo and market is providing 2 rupees per kilo. So farmer sells to the market. Government is not procuring from the farmer, so no question of MSP. So 2 rupees. So the gap between the MSP or the price, the minimum price that the government feels that the farmer should get is 4 rupees, but it is getting 2 rupees. So that 2 rupee additional will be compensated by the governor, right? So when the price deficiency is there, that will be compensated. And this has been linked to the direct benefit transfer scheme, right? So this is Pradhan Mantri Annadata Aay Sanrakshan Abhiyan. So there are different schemes. So that model has been done. Okay, so this is there. Then we have MSP based procurement operation that is being done by the government. And we are also looking at allocations for rural development. Then one more scheme is there, that direct income will be provided to the farmers. So rather than having MSP and other things, why not directly provide money to the farmers? Directly, universally provide them money. So farmers are provided 5,000 rupees per annum according to this scheme, right? Unconditionally it is provided. Only thing is the farmer must have land, supporting documents, and they will be provided. Now there are other schemes also, as I always say, Ritu Bandhu scheme in Telengana and the Kalia scheme in Odisha. I believe those schemes are much better than this. But yes, we have this concept of income transfer to the farmers. Now what can the government do? So it says that the government, what they must do is increase the budgetary allocation. And this entire article is about low budgetary allocation. So budgetary allocation has to increase. Now in addition to this, I'll tell you something. No matter which country you are in, even in USA also, farm is not a profitable sector. So most of it is, farmers make money, but farm per se is not profitable. So they are sustaining on subsidies, and huge amount of subsidies provided. So the government needs to spend more. It needs to improve the infrastructure like irrigation facility. And which is a scheme that we have with reference to irrigation? Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, right? And that's an umbrella scheme which includes lot of other things like more drop per crop. So all those schemes also are there. Efficient use of water. Then rural infrastructure, rural transportation has to be improved, because farmer ultimately, after getting the inputs and everything, the farmer after production will sell it to the mandi. So that connectivity should be good. And then market reforms. Right, so these are certain steps that she has advocated over here. I think beyond this, you can also refer to food processing. So that should be encouraged. So this is the question, elaborate on the policy taken by the government in India to meet the challenges of the farm sector. I think you can write this answer. Now one more thing, before this we had doubling farmers' income by 2022. There was no reference in the budget, so I didn't mention this. Right, so doubling farmers' income was an agenda. You can get a lot of inputs from here if you refer it. With this concept that I've shared with you, this will help. So you can refer to this. And with reference to doubling farmers' income, we have Ashok Dalwai committee. You can refer to Swaminathan commission reports on farm sector reforms. Right, just type Swaminathan, type PRS next to it, you will get the content. Okay. Now coming to the international news, lot of developments, right? 3 things we have. So let's come to the Russia crisis, Ukraine-Russia crisis. I'll explain with the help of a map. Okay, so briefly about what is happening with Ukraine, a quick recap, and then what is France doing in that. And we come across a new term known as shuttle diplomacy. Okay, so we have a situation where we feel that the Ukraine would be invaded by Russia. Right, so we had a conflict in 2014 also. So we have a legitimate concern that Ukraine would be invaded. So we know that the Crimean Peninsula is very, very important. They have acquired this in 2014 and they will retain it, and possibly they will cut off Ukraine. Now we also have a scenario where Belarus, there is a joint military exercise going on between Belarus and Russia, and huge amount of soldiers, Russian soldiers, are on the northern borders of Ukraine. So they can invade from here, they can invade from here and acquire the whole of Ukraine. So this will provide some sort of a buffer to Russia against the NATO forces. NATO forces is a front against Russia, right? So this is led by the US and Western countries. So about 28 odd countries are part of this. So they are a front against Russia, and they are concerned that if they enter into Ukraine, this will be very close to their borders. Okay. Then we had Russia and USA having a diplomacy, and Russia expressed their concerns. One of them was that NATO is still existing and they feel threatened because of this. Then they said that one is this. They also said that Ukraine should not be part of the NATO. I think it's mentioned somewhere here. Ukraine should not be part of the NATO over here. So if it becomes part of NATO, that means the NATO forces will be very close to Russia. This is a problem. Okay. Now we have, when this 2014 conflict had taken place, at that time there was something known as Minsk Agreement. Minsk is the capital of Belarus, and Belarus and Russia are friends. So in Minsk, Russia, Ukraine, Germany and France were negotiating. So we had a Minsk settlement in 2014. Things again went back in 2015, and then eventually, because of this Minsk summit, there was an evolution of something known as Normandy format or Normandy grouping. Again, these countries, France, Germany, Belarus, these countries were there. Okay, so France is concerned about this, and France is a very major power over here, France and Germany. No UK, right? UK outside. Okay, so France president has been having talks with Ukraine, Russia. He has visited, and then he has come back, and now he's going to Germany. So this is known as the shuttle diplomacy, traveling from one place to another, here and there, talking, to resolve the conflict. And now France and Germany are having consultation that how we can resolve this issue. So this is it. So he feels that Macron says that Russian president has said that Russia will not be a cause of conflict or source of escalation over here. Right, and he says that the demands that Russia has presented is not legitimate, especially with the guarantees that they want from NATO, that will not be suitable. Okay, so this is one thing. Beyond this, Russia, USA and Germany, they have made a remark with reference to Russia. So there is this Nord Stream that is coming from Russia. Nord Stream. So there is already a Nord Stream that is coming from Russia. So it is flowing through this area, Nordic countries, from the sea and connecting Germany. This provides them a natural gas, so a key source of energy. Now a new project has come up known as Nord Stream 2. Construction has taken place, but till now the gas is not being supplied. So this could be a major source of Russian economy. So now they have said that, see, if this invasion type thing takes place, then this Nord Stream, we will not take the oil from there. Now there are pros and cons for both Russia as well as Europe, because Europe will get cheap oil, cheap energy. There is high inflation in these countries, so there is a pressure. But they have said that we will not get the oil from the gas from the pipeline from Russia. Right, so this is what they have said. These are the developments. Now with reference to the shortage of semiconductors, so our entire world is shaken up because of this, and the semiconductor industry is predominant with the countries like Taiwan, China, South Korea, these countries, right? And this is required for your electronics, it is required for your all the things that I am using right now. It is used in your automobiles also, everywhere. So it has affected the entire economy. So now EU means these European Union countries, not all Europe. All of Europe is part of this. For example, UK is not part of it because of the Brexit. Okay, so because of the Brexit over here. So EU now, the EU basically wants to have self-dependency in semiconductors. They want to be self-dependent, and they want to want to have greater share in the global market of semiconductors. They want to quadruple, make their efforts 4 times. That is what is the idea. Right, for us that is adequate. Now this subsequent part is with reference to the politics with EU, because when we refer to the EU, it is not just one country making a policy, it is for the entire bloc. So entire bloc will come together, the entire bloc will have to contribute for the resources that are required to develop infra, to provide mining areas, right? So they have to come together and they have to negotiate. So some countries have a problem with that. Some countries feel that their supply lines with Asian countries will get affected because of this. So, or some would say that their money will be allocated. We don't want to do it. So such concerns are there. Now coming to the Sri Lanka issue, this is the last one that we have. So we had the Sri Lanka's foreign minister coming to India and meeting the stakeholders. And the basic issue with reference to Sri Lanka was that a basic issue with Sri Lanka was that they were facing a cash crunch. They were facing a balance of payment crisis, right? Balance of payment crisis. That is, they have borrowed more money from the outside and now they are not in a position to pay back. So in light of this, and India is very, for India, Sri Lanka is very strategically important. We'll come to that. So India has provided them urgent financial assistance, like a true and reliable friend. So they are providing them currency swap agreement, 400 million. They are providing them loan deferment, 500 million. India has provided them a lot of credit which has to go back, so that they are providing. And a line of credit for 500 million, because to import oil etc. they need money, right? Sri Lanka doesn't have, so they need money. So for that again they need money. And if it is not provided, to be honest, there will be political unrest, there will be agitations and unrest which will have an impact on India as well. Okay, and Sri Lanka again has offered its Trincomalee oil tank farm deal, right? So this is being provided to them. Now let's come to this issue over here. Let's look at it from a macro level. So when we look at this India-Sri Lanka relationship over here, one thing with us is that Sri Lanka is in close proximity to India. I'm talking from the point of view of geostrategic interest or geopolitics, so geography and politics. So China would like to have a presence over here. China would like to have a presence over here. China would like to have their navy over here or nuclear assets, so that they are able to curtail India, right? So they are able to confine India, restrict India, put pressure on India. So this is one of the agenda, and this is part of China's string of pearls policy. Now one of the way of doing it is, and getting more concessions from Sri Lanka, is providing them lot of money or debt which they are not able to pay back. So this is known as debt trap diplomacy. When they are not able to pay back, they will provide their assets to Chinese. That is the interest they want. They want the land. They are not interested so much in the money. So this is one issue. So this land will again be used against India's interest. One issue. Okay. Then comes the issue of Tamil issue. Now see, this, I have a video on the Tamil issue also. So this northern Sri Lanka is Tamil dominated, right? Tamil community. There was a civil unrest also that took place. And what happens in Sri Lanka Tamilians, it affects the domestic population of India as well. It affects the Tamilians in Tamil Nadu. It affects them. So it is a domestic issue. It becomes a domestic issue as well as international. In fact, on this basis, a question was asked that the policy towards Sri Lanka is determined by the domestic factors. So Tamil issue. And for this reference, because of all this riots and agitation have taken place, India wants Sri Lanka to bring in the 13th amendment to the constitution. Amendment's name is 13A. So they want, which will provide them, which will give the Tamil provinces greater autonomy, right? So that is what the Indian side has requested. Then we also have the issue of the fishermen issue. So there are Indian fishermen who encroach, they cross over this maritime boundary, maybe accidentally, they enter into the Sri Lankan side, and one of the reasons is that there is good amount of fishery resources, right? So because of this, sometimes obviously there are clashes, there are loss of life, there are fishermen, Indian fishermen who get arrested by the Coast Guard or the Marine Police. So it becomes a humanitarian issue. So on that regard also, the Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka has provided an assurance that corrective measures would be taken and the pork pay fisheries conflict would be addressed amicably on the principles of humanitarian issue. In fact, I have discussed this in the news analysis that was done in Friday. So I discussed it as the last news. So for that purpose, a joint working group will be established. Then there was the next news that Sri Lanka to launch its own Aadhaar. Right, we have our Aadhaar, so like that a digital identity framework will be done, and India has agreed to provide a grant, provide the technology, so that they Sri Lankans can also have this system. Then we have I have taken this from Indian Express with reference to Trinakomali oil tank farm tank deal. So what is this? So this is basically a pre-World War II era oil storage facility. So we can store our oil in Sri Lanka whenever we need it, we can get it from there. That is the idea. So it can have a capacity of 1 million tons, which far outstrips the demand in Sri Lanka. Right, so basically we can use this as a strategic reserves. So when the oil prices are high, we don't buy from there, we use it, we store our oil over here and get it back into India. So that is the idea. Right then, so this essentially concludes our daily news analysis. So thank you for streaming in, and you can write your answers, no quota limit for these 2 questions that I have. So this is it. Bye bye, take care and all the best. And please do subscribe and click on that bell icon, then you can get the notification. Even I don't get notification on my personal channel. So this is it. Bye bye.